What's going on, everyone? I hope you're all doing well. If you're new here, my name is Serge. Welcome to the channel. To all my reoccurring viewers, thank you so much for all the love and support that each and every single one of you have shown me. And if you have not yet, feel free to go check out legionassistedlivingacademy.com, where I teach how to start your own facility from A to Z. Also, I will be doing a monthly webinar, so make sure to go register on the website. And also, if you're a passive investor or an operator looking to potentially sell or expand your business, feel free to reach out to us at valleyalfventures.com. We would love to have a conversation with you. And so let's go ahead and jump into the topic of this video. In this video, I am going to talk about staffing and the hiring process that I go through and put all my employees in order to successfully have a residential assisted living home, and making sure that me as the owner am not there day in and day out. So if you're interested about scaling and what that all entails, make sure to stick around. In most residential assisted living homes, what you're gonna see when it comes to employees is you're gonna have a manager and administrator who are gonna handle a lot of the tours, admitting new residents, and also doing a lot of the paperwork, scheduling. But then you'll also typically see an assistant manager who's going to assist your main manager and make sure that things are being properly done, properly documented. And then you're gonna have your lead caregivers, and then also your other caregivers who are gonna be handling a lot of the care for the residents. And so when you're looking to hire, your main person is going to be that manager or administrator. And when I look to hire a manager or administrator, I typically like to see that they have 2+ years of experience managing other homes for other individuals. And I do not like to typically hire managers who have their own separate homes, because it takes away from them focusing on your own facilities. And if they have other homes, they're gonna typically favor and be biased towards placing residents and doing tours at their facilities before they prioritize your own facility. So typically with that, you wanna make sure that they're not spread out too thin and that they're not managing a bunch of other homes. When it comes to hiring an assistant manager, one thing I like to typically look is to make sure that they have really good organizational skills and that they can document properly and that they can have really good oversight. What I typically like to do is take lead caregivers and work them up into that role of assistant manager and then eventually manager. So you do want to always provide that upward momentum for your staff. When it comes to caregivers, it's very critical that you properly vet them and that they have the proper experience to be able to stay with you and retain them. And when I'm looking at caregivers, I like to typically have people who have at least 6 months to 2 years of experience. But I'll also look, if they do have more than 2 years experience, 3 to 5 years, I'll typically like to hire those individuals too, because they'll be a good fit for like a lead caregiver role. If I have a lead caregiver that's moving up to assistant manager or manager, typically with those lead caregivers and the people that have 2 to 5 years of experience, what you'll come to find out is that they actually have really difficult time training and fitting into the culture that you've created, typically because they come with habits and skills from somewhere else that they feel is going to work for your culture and your business. So training them is typically a little more difficult than the people who have 6 months to 2 years of experience as caregivers. So that's something I'm always factoring in when we're doing the hiring. And so when you guys are looking, those are just some things you want to make sure that whoever's doing your hiring, that you have that checklist of things to look for when you're gonna be coming in and interviewing any of those potential candidates for those caregiver roles. And then when I'm doing the hiring and I'm having people do the hiring as well, is typically they'll submit their application in, and then we'll give them a call, introduce ourselves, let them know, hey, we would love to meet with you. But we don't typically go to the facility to do the initial interview. We typically like to go into a more casual setting, such as a coffee shop or even for lunch, and sit down with them, get to know them a little bit. And it's typically a 45-minute to an hour long interview, and we warm them up. And then that really gives us a good indication if they're gonna be a good candidate for our facility. And then if they are gonna end up being a good candidate, that's when we'll do a second interview at the facility, let them introduce themselves to the current staff there, to the residents, and let them know that they're gonna potentially be starting within 2 weeks at that point. So if they do get a second interview, it's a good likelihood that they're going to actually be hired on. And we do let them know, if you get that second interview, that means we like them, we think they're gonna be a good fit for the facility. And then at that point, what we like to do is get them set up and get the training going. And that's what I'm gonna talk about next, is what we typically do for the training. Now, a lot of the questions that we like to typically ask on that first interview that we have with potential candidates and caregivers that we're going to hire for the facility is we first start off with, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me about your family. How many kids do you have? How long have you been married? We like to kind of give that personal touch initially when we do the interview. And then we like to touch on, okay, tell me more about your experience in assisted living homes. What was that like? Who did you previously work for? What are some scenarios that happened in the facility, and how did you actually solve certain problems that came up? And we like to continue to let them give us more answers and not try to lead too many questions on. And we typically like to make sure that they're properly answering these and phrasing certain questions when it comes to asking them about, give us those solutions. How did you solve those solutions? How was the environment that you were working in? How did you work together as a team with other caregivers and other staff at these homes? What were the main roles that you were actually doing at the facility? Were you doing a lot more medication management? Were you doing a lot more of the caregiving for the residents? Were you doing more so the cleaning and the cooking? Tell us about your strengths and weaknesses when it came to these different components of being a caregiver. And what did you enjoy most? What did you not enjoy? Right? Because that will give us a good idea of where they're going to fit within our facility and within our home. And once we determine that this is going to be a good caregiver and staff for our facility, we put them on a 90-day probation period. During the initial 30 days, what we like to do is have training modules and checklists that they're going to be trained on, and they're going to shadow with the staff that's there at the home. And we like to rotate the new staff member and the new caregiver with other caregivers, so that way they can go ahead and build a relationship. They can go ahead and properly get trained on different aspects and things that they're going to be doing. And so if in those first 30 days, they go through those modules, they complete them, they go through the checklist, and they've trained with each and every single one of the staff there at the facility, and it comes back that they're doing well, that the feedback has been positive from other staff and other residents, that at that 60-day mark, what we like to typically do is start having them independently work at different points of the facility and doing different tasks. And then by the time they're at that 90-day period, we know for a fact that this is going to be a good caregiver and staff member that's going to stay with us long term. And then it ends up being a good situation, and we don't need to continue wondering, is this person going to work out for us, or if they're not? Why I think this 90-day process works so well for us and why we retain such good staff in the long term is because of the fact that we're not wasting time. And so you following the same 90-day process and system that I incorporate in my facilities will help you in the long term to retain and keep those loyal employees that are going to be with you in the long term and help you scale and remove all that headache that comes with hiring the right staff. So give it a shot. Let me know if it works for you. And if it does, feel free to reach out to me and let me know how that goes. So that's what I typically like to do in a lot of our facilities and what we incorporate when it comes to finding the staff, hiring them, and training them. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments section. I would love to hear from you. And with that being said, thank you so much. Make sure to comment, like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you all in the next video.